5 mistakes many first-time Scrum Master make that is stopping them from landing their first job. Have you been struggling to get into the IT field as a Scrum Master, but it seems that no matter how far you try, it's getting more frustrated? Now, there might be something that you're doing that is stopping you from getting into that position. And I want you to follow this video to the end. I'm going to be pointing out 5 key mistakes that most first-time Scrum Master make that is stopping them from getting their first job. But before we move ahead, make sure that you subscribe and you like so that next time when I put a video, you will get a notification and you'll be the first person to watch it. Now, the first mistake is in the resume. One thing you need to understand about resume is the fact that when you get called by a recruiter, they're not necessarily going deep into your resume to see if you're using the correct language or not. They just kind of pull out keywords using the application tracking system, and then they recommend you to the hiring manager. The hiring manager is the one that actually take their time, go through the resume, look at the wording, see if you actually know exactly what you're saying. So in the resume, number one thing, which many first-time Scrum Master have reviewed a couple of resumes and have been able to advise the candidate on what to do, and just within that they've been able to bypass the recruiter interview and start landing interview with the hiring manager. With the hiring manager. Now, one of the first mistakes I've noticed is in the use of word. Now, if your resume and you're giving your role as a Scrum Master and you're saying like I manage the team, I supervise the team, I document the team, I take down notes, and that's not the role of a Scrum Master. Now, Scrum Master, it's a leadership role, but it's not a management role. There are 3 main things that a Scrum Master should be doing: facilitating events, coaching the team, and teaching when it is necessary. Now, the Scrum Master is not a manager. That's why it is different from a project manager. So if your resume contains words like I have to manage a product backlog, or I manage team meetings and all of that, now that's just an indication that you have not even taken your time to read the Scrum Guide to understand exactly what your role as a Scrum Master do. So check out your resume. If you see a word like I manage, I supervise, I document. Why is it very important? Because as a Scrum Master, you are supporting expert, right? And you cannot really manage them. You're only kind of coordinating and making sure that everything is in place for them to effectively do their work. So as a Scrum team is a self-organized team, right? It's a self-organized team, which means that you just want to facilitate to make sure that the team is self-organized. Number 2 mistakes many first-time Scrum Master make is over-communicating their expertise. Now, many first Scrum Master will put maybe about 4 years, 5 years of experience as Scrum Master. Now, when they get to an interview, they're unable to defend that. If I'm talking to you and you say you've been working as a Scrum Master for 5 years, now there's a way I expect you to communicate. So most often, if you get a 5 years working experience on your resume and you're able to communicate as someone that has been delivering for 5 years, now that is a very big mistake. And because of that, many people, you might bypass the recruiter interview, then you get kicked out, right? In their first interview, you get a no, right? Because you are not really communicating what you put in your resume. So I always recommend for people that are studying, do a maximum of 2 years, right? You can do 2 contracting rule. You can do a maximum of 2 years as your experience as a Scrum Master. Now, if you're within your first 2 years, everyone understands that it's still a learning process, right? And because of that, they want one thing that hiring manager really want, they're not looking for expert. They're looking for someone that is courageous and someone that is willing to learn. So most often when you're trying to be an expert when you're not yet an expert, it is a big issue, because that's an indication of someone that is not willing to learn. And now the way the Scrum framework itself operate is that there's no right or wrong, right? Because it is a mindset. There are principles and values, and it can be implemented differently in different environments. So now there's no right or wrong. So it's more about your leadership capability and more about how you can facilitate and how you can help your team to really win. Now, looking at also over communicating your expertise, you also want to look at the transition from where you've been to where you are right now. And that is the third mistake which many first Scrum Master make. They kind of just focus on putting Scrum as a career and forget about the previous experience they have had. Now, Scrum is a leadership role. So for me to be able to pick out your resume, I want to see that you have not only been a Scrum Master throughout your life, I want to see that you have been able to work in all the different places. So it just tells me that you work with different teams, you have that ability to understand the diversity that operate within the team, and then you, since you work in different environments, you have now a larger capacity to adapt compared to someone that has just been on one line for a very long time. So if you can go back, start from your previous work experience and list that up, and then let the Scrum Master experience be like the top. And that is also going to help you during your interview when you're talking about me. One of the stuff I kind of did in the other video when I was explaining how you should answer about me is that you need to kind of zoom from where you started your career and then navigate up and see where you had a transition into Scrum. Now, look at this. When you look at Scrum it's more like entering into the IT world. It is kind of really gaining grounds now, right? Which means that in the past 10 years or so, you had almost no limited knowledge, or it wasn't really widely used compared to how it is being used today. Now, if you kind of get into a transition where you say, oh, I've been doing this and I came across this and that's what I do achieve, now you put yourself in a more better position compared to someone that is just focusing on the Scrum experience. So if you can, I'll put a link on the video on how to answer. Tell me about yourself. I'll put it under this video. You can go watch that as well. Now, the fourth mistake that many first-time Scrum Master make is not having a case study, right? You know all about the Scrum framework. You know how to run the sprint planning, daily stand-up, sprint review, sprint retrospective. You can really talk about that, what is being done there, but there is no case study. Now, one of your powerful strengths when you sit in front of a hiring manager is the ability to say, oh, why I was working with team B, now we had this scenario and this is how I handle it, rather than say, oh, to run a spring planning meeting, what I normally do is that I make sure that all my story are grown before then, I make sure I have my capacity, I check the velocity, I check that everything is in place. Everyone can say that. What differentiates you from other people is like, okay, for instance, in one of my last spring, while I was working with maybe Safe Media, we're building a story that had to do with the distribution of audio files to all our partners. And before then, I had to. So now you see that you're talking reality. So building a case study is very important. If you don't have a case study, I have an interview mastermind group. You can join my interview mastermind group. Check on the video. You will see a link. Send me an email, and I should be able to tell you how you can be part of my mastermind group. I can teach you how you can build a case study based on what you're familiar with, based on your expertise, based on how you can be able to communicate effectively. So I always advise Scrum Master, build about 2 case studies and make sure you're practicing with those case studies throughout the period that you're practicing. If you keep doing that, you become an expert. So Scrum is about the practice and less about you doing the theory. So focus on the practice. Number 5, and this is the catch. This is the catch. If you can implement the fifth one, you're going to get rid of the first 4 mistakes. Number 5 is no coaching. Coaching is very, very important. Hey, if you're in the Scrum Master field, look, one of the stuff which you need to do is to invest in your value on how to communicate. And how do you do that? Get a coach. Now, some people might feel like I don't need a coach, or I don't need someone to guide me through. I understand these, I have some experience in this. But this is the important thing about a coach. When you invest in a coach, the first thing is that it makes you to be able to put in more value. You realize that, oh, this is important. And because this is important, you're pushed to do more compared to you just coming to YouTube pages, looking at video, doing your try and error now. Now, when you work with a coach, when you are faced with challenges, you come back. He's able to walk you through how to what to do. Now, there's some cases where you might feel discouraged that you're not doing well. If the coach sit down with you and show you 1 or 2 things, you'll be able to go much further. And then one most important thing of also working with a coach is that a coach can be able to advise and say, oh, since you've had this number of interviews, it's not going, why don't you try this? Why don't you try this? So those are 5 mistakes first-time Scrum Master make. Don't be part of them. But most importantly, subscribe to my channel. I'm going to be bringing more of this video, and we're also going to be discussing more scenario-based cases and test cases subsequently. And if you want to be part of my mastermind group, send me an email. If you're not yet certified and you want to be a certified Scrum Master, also send me an email. I can be able to walk you through what it takes. All right. Most importantly, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. I will see you in my next video. My name is Dr. Francis Mbuya, and I am your business agility coach.